They wanted another.
Right, welcome back. If you've just joined us, delegates that you're seeing on your screens now, they were voting a short while ago, and it's been a long night for many of them. They've been voting province by province, and 200 delegates at a time, and these ones I think are leaving and getting a bit of rest, because the results process will only really start probably much later this afternoon, if not even late afternoon, early evening today. But I think there's probably three or four provinces still left to cast their votes, and they're pretty big as well, so that should take quite some time.
It will do. And then, of course, just to remind you, there's also the different leagues that still need to put in their votes. The Women's League, the Veterans League, the Youth League, we've got the NEC, we've got the PEC. All of those votes still need to be done as well. Then they need to be counted. Peter and myself were trying to speak, or try and educate each other as to the fact of whether or not counting may begin province by province. I'm not sure. Perhaps our guests can shed some light on that to us. I mean, you guys, I'm also throwing you into the deep end. We've got Professor Teniko Maluleka and Busi Chimombe, who is the SABC Deputy Political Editor. Does the counting only start once every single delegate has cast their vote, or can it happen province by province once the votes are cast? Do you have any idea?
You know, I don't know, but I doubt if, provinces will become irrelevant for the counting. The ballot paper is probably going to dictate the counting. So they will count the votes for the president position, and then for the deputy, and then, like that. That's what I assume will happen. Although you may have a point in that if there were to be queries and issues that come from provinces, they would need to be able to respond to those.
So we don't actually know if they count. I mean, from previous conferences, have we known, do they count province per province, or is it just as one big pool of votes? Because it is meant to be anonymous, so you shouldn't really know where the votes were predominantly coming from, but there must be some way of finding out.
I'm open to correction, but I do think that they vote province by province, and it's only at the end, when every last delegate has voted, that it's done. And you must understand that, especially with the tensions now, and there's a lot of nervousness in terms of what the results will end up looking like. I think people would be uncomfortable in the trickle of results coming in batches of provinces. So I think, from my understanding, once every last ballot has been vote has been counted, then the ballot has been closed, then it will be opened, and then the counting. I think, just from a international standard point of view, I think this is what would happen.
I want to talk about,
there may be
please.
Recounting. It has happened before that the counting is done, and then there's queries, and then there's recounting. That's part of the reason I think that the results may not come after the first count.
Okay.
And I suppose judging what a spoiled paper is or isn't, because if every vote counts and you haven't voted properly, or you haven't put your mark properly, these are the ones that they're going to have to make decisions about whether this is a clear vote. Is it spoiled? Do we discard it, or do we include it?
And what do we do with unity?
And exactly. spoiled ballots, does that happen? Do you get a delegate that just says, I'm not voting? So those are things that you also need to take into consideration.
That always happens. There will be some spoiled ballots. I don't know that they are all intentionally spoiled.
No, I don't think so.
Some are spoiled because people just misunderstood or didn't do the right thing.
We keep showing visuals of these delegates, and we know the provinces that they're coming from and who they're representing, but how are they chosen? I know it's quite a complicated process into being chosen as the delegate to come to represent your province and to cast your vote. How does it happen? Do you have many insights?
It's supposed to happen at BGMs, at branch general meetings. Because that's where they choose who will represent that particular branch. As to the actual processes inside of the branch, it's difficult to know. But we do know that every branch with 100 members is entitled to one delegate. And thereafter, a delegate per an extra 250 members. So roughly, that's what we know. We know that some branches are bigger than 100, therefore they will have more than one delegate. But most branches probably will just be 100 members and have one delegate.
We just got some word in now, which is the latest update on the voting, that we've got one more province to get through. So all the other provinces have voted. It is now just Gauteng that needs to be finalised. Gauteng, however, is a number of delegates. It's quite a big number. Busi, I'm not sure if you.
I would say it's one of the small. I would say it's one of the smaller
Is it one
provinces.
Of the small ones?
It's
yes.
one of the smaller
So I
ones,
would say that what you had initially said about midday in terms of results may actually materialize, because if we're left with Gauteng as one of the smaller provinces with one of the smallest delegations, we're likely to actually see this process come to an end quite soon.
Yeah.
I'm watching these delegates on our screens now as they're moving out, and we were speaking earlier on to former Ekurhuleni Mayor Gungubele, and he said that, you know, Peter, there was all this contestation going into the voting, but what started to happen is after they had voted, there was almost like a relief and a coming together, and they were now singing songs together as opposed to kind of, I suppose that expresses some relief, and still not, with the results not out yet, you know, they might still be hopeful, and that's why they're being friendly. Might that turn once those results come out?
It's the calm before the storm of celebration or pain, depending on what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the tensions were very high, even yesterday. You saw the singing that broke out just before the nominations process. I think that singing was more, you know, sort of relief. People needing to do something because they were so tense about it.
Who created this tension? Was it the leaders? Was it? How did we get to a point where it's so tense, this process this time around?
I think it is what it is, simply because, you know, from the very beginning, it was said that there were 7 presidential candidates. But we knew quite early in the process of campaigning that really it was actually going to come down to the 2. So I think because it is 2 and energies are concentrated in 2 camps, it becomes a little bit of a zero-sum game, and this is why tensions rise to that extent.
Yeah, we keep on saying the stakes are higher this time around, and perhaps that feeds into that. And then also you sort of factor in political killings, and also the aftermath of the local government elections, the fears about the future as well. All of these things coming into this melting pot.
I think the past 5 years, the past 3 years, if you like, of South African politics has been tumultuous, to say the least. I mean, we have seen the Nkandla court ruling, we have seen the fire pool politics, we have had state capture now, and all the stuff going on in the SOEs. The Gupta hurricane that has touched so many aspects of our lives, public and private sector, SASA debacle, Esidimeni, Marikana. I mean, you list all of those things, and the economy, and the threat of junk status. So it has been a rough few years for South Africans. This week alone, I mean, this past week, we have had 2 court rulings, and the week before that, another court ruling of a national nature that touch on the president. So you've got to be dead men walking, not to feel that this is a country where history is being made week after week, month after month, even though you know, you may say nothing has changed, But actually, we have been on a roller coaster as a nation. That's where the tension comes from.
I want to ask, however, you know, we see the different divisions, and we know it. Again, like you said, if you don't see it, you must be a dead man walking, to be real. So you've got your different camps that are going, and then let's talk about the powers that, if, for instance, Cyril Ramaphosa is brought in as the president of the country, and then you've got Didi Mabuza, who is the deputy president of the country, and the NEC, because I know that that's the decision-making part of this entire party. But I mean, where will this power lie? Because you're going to have the one faction wanting one thing and another faction wanting another thing. And this is going to be, you know, we all expecting a cleansing ceremony to happen. But when you are so mixed, how do you go about that cleansing that we're talking about?
If the slate, I don't know what Busi thinks, well, if the slate is broken.
Yeah, I've got a different, when it talks about where the power lies, just from an NEC point of view, I think it's a little bit bigger than even the factions. I mean, I understand what you're asking, but I think one of the problems with what has happened to the ANC at the moment is that you have a lot of people who are deployed to the NEC, and what they want, a lot of people who are elected to the NEC, and what they want is to be deployed to government. And what generally then happens is, whereas the NEC is supposed to be supervising the work of government and the president, now we have seen a situation, and we have seen this. We have seen an NEC that has been held ransom to perhaps the wishes of the president, even in the face of the fact that there have been a number of issues that have tainted the president, but they've held on to him. I think the problem with the NEC at the moment and the way things are structured is we don't actually have that mix. We have people who want to be deployed to government and who are then directed and instructed by the president, and we've seen what happens at the point at which, if you don't take instructions, perhaps your career is short-lived, perhaps in cabinet. So I think the situation is a little bit mixed, is a little bit bigger than that, and I think mixture is not a bad thing, actually.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are saying.
Who's going to make that decision? Because this centers of power has been discussed ad nauseum now for quite a while. And if you're benefiting from it, you're not going to want to push for change, but it's quite clear that they do need to. So where will that decision be taken, and by who?
Well, I think the delegates will force it upon them if they choose in such a way as to produce a mix. I mean, if the DA and the EFF can work together, surely Cyril Ramaphosa and Didi Mabuza can work together. They belong to the same party. And so can NDZ and Lindiwe Sisulu, if they are chosen. I'm sure they can work together. So, I mean, if the instruction from the delegates is we want a mix in terms of the outcome of the voting, the leaders will have no option but to obey that instruction and work with it. And the markets too, I mean, a lot has been said about the fact that the markets will be happier with Cyril Ramaphosa than with NDZ. But I think the markets, sooner or later,
just follow what is.
Yes, you know, so they also will come to the party sooner or later. But as I said, I mean, you know, the problems ahead are even bigger than the problems behind.
So this is the easy bit.
Indeed it is. Thank you so much to both of our guests here that have been talking to us and analysing the situation on Morning Live. Professor Tinyiko Maluleka and, of course, Busi Chimombe, who is the SABC Deputy Political Editor, giving us some analysis. So, Gauteng Province, I checked those numbers out, 491 delegates. That's how many delegates are in Gauteng that are now left to vote. But that, of course, is minus your leagues, your PECs and your NECs, which are still a couple of hundred. So who knows? Maybe by 12 o'clock those votes are done. But we'll have to wait on that one.
All right, so that's at 12 o'clock. It's almost 9 o'clock, which means it's time to say thank you very much for watching Morning Live for this day. We've got Newsroom coming up after the ad break. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone.